Today I'm going to be reviewing House Bill 5463, which proposes restructuring the Michigan merit curriculum to create a new 21st century skills component. In addition to this presentation, MASSP has prepared a detailed bill analysis. If you have additional questions after watching the screencast or would like more detail about the bill, I would urge you to review that analysis. Let me start with a brief history for the impetus of this legislation. Recently, data storage company Switch announced that it would be opening a 1,000-plus job facility in Grand Rapids. The ensuing press coverage created a narrative that there is a shortage of qualified computer programmers and other similar employees in Michigan. In response, a group of school officials, employers, and lawmakers from the Grand Rapids area began a push to create more room for computer science in the MMC. Before we dig into the details of the bill, I also want to briefly review the current political climate around the merit curriculum. Interest in changing the MMC typically bubbles right below the surface in Lansing. That interest wages an ongoing battle with educator and legislative fatigue around continually moving the goal line for students. Situations like this, where lawmakers can justify their support for more changes by couching it as an economic development opportunity, create a political climate where this bill has traction. To be clear, while there is limited room for computer science in the Michigan merit curriculum currently, it does exist. Computer science can be substituted for the third science credit. Additionally, since the Michigan Department of Education does not define what constitutes applied arts, to the extent that local districts allow it, computer science could potentially be crowbarred into the visual performing and applied arts category. As originally introduced, House Bill 5463 proposed to create the desired room for computer science by cleverly, if somewhat disingenuously, categorizing it as a world language. The argument went something like this: learning a computer programming language should be equivalent to learning any other language. That argument came under fire, and combined with the political pressures around changing the MMC writ large, the bill morphed into its current form. The revised version of the legislation proposes combining the existing 1 credit of visual performing and applied arts with the current 2 credits of world language and creating a new 3-credit bucket called the 21st Century Skills. Under the proposal, students could fulfill this new requirement with any combination of the courses enumerated as part of the bucket. Those include world language, visual performing and applied arts, computer science, and a formal MDE-approved career and technical education program. Because MDE would have to develop guidelines for districts in implementing this new requirement, there are some unknowns. However, based on some preliminary conversations with the department, we do have some indication of what the answers to those questions might be. In world language, the existing flexibilities, like fulfilling the requirement using world language experiences at any time taking K-12, or counting equivalent language experiences from outside of school, would remain in place. Likely, students would also still be required to take 2 credits of the same language if they decided to take more than 1 credit of language as part of their 21st century skills requirement. The visual performing and applied arts requirements would likely remain unchanged. Since there are no state standards for computer science currently outside the career and technical education realm, MDE would have to develop those standards. The content guidelines for those courses would determine what endorsements a teacher would have to have in order to teach a computer science or coding course to fulfill this requirement. But we would expect that a teacher is going to have an NR endorsement, since that's what's currently required to teach computer science or computer programming, and we believe that the standards would be written in such a way so that computer literacy or keyboarding would not be options. Finally, students would also be able to fulfill this with an MDE-approved formal CTE program, which would mean that students would have to be successful completers of a full career and technical education program sequence, not just take a single CTE course. To prompt your thinking as you consider this legislation and try to come to a determination about whether it's a good idea, we've put together a list of implications and arguments for and against the bill. We've also included some questions at the end to guide discussion. To make sure we had a complete understanding of what implications this proposal may have for college-bound students, we consulted with the Michigan Association of College Admissions Counselors. They indicated that while most colleges and universities in and out of Michigan recommend 2 or more years of a foreign language, They do not require it for admissions purposes. Typically, the more selective the school, the more years of foreign language instruction that university or college recommends. This would mean that counselors, principals, and college-bound students will have to be diligent in using this proposed flexibility so as not to limit their options. Additionally, while colleges and universities may not require foreign language for admission, many require it for graduation. So if this were to pass, students who are not exposed to foreign language at the high school level might struggle with it more once they made it to college. The arguments for and against the proposed changes will be familiar to many principals. On the pro side, the change would provide additional flexibility for students to specialize. Given that most students do not attend a four-year institution after high school, that specialization could be much more beneficial to them than the current requirements. Additionally, there is undeniably limited room in the Michigan Merit Curriculum for computer science and the arts. These courses are treated largely as electives. Even the more advanced and academically rigorous versions of these courses like AP Computer Science or AP Studio Art. Finally, the bill would help schools that struggle to find world language teachers or schools that have trouble offering advanced language, third and fourth years of language to students because their capacity is used up making sure that every student has at least 2 years of world language. On the con side, the Michigan Merit Curriculum was created with the idea of raising the bar for all students, and by dropping the world language requirement, it could result in non-traditional college attendees and students looking for an easier option being left unprepared if they decide later to apply for a four-year college. This would be especially true for first-generation college attendees, students of color, or students of lower socioeconomic means. World language instruction also has benefits outside the specific language discipline itself. It's been shown to enhance students' learning of their own native language, to make them more well-rounded and worldly, and it's undeniably useful to anyone who has regular contact with non-English speakers, whether that's in international business, agriculture, the culinary arts, or other educational or career areas. As it currently stands, the bill has passed the House of Representatives already, which was predictable given that it was referred not to the Education Committee, but to the Workforce and Talent Development Committee. This shows that the focus of House leadership was on the potential employment implications of the bill and not on students' academic preparedness. In the Senate, however, the bill has been referred to the Education Committee, which creates space for an education debate about the bill. In the past, Senator Pavlo, who's one of the few legislators left who was around when the merit curriculum law first passed, has not been a fan of changing it. But he's not yet weighed in on this bill, so its future is uncertain. Finally, as you consider this legislation, please consider also your potential answers to the following questions. Will the potential benefits of this legislation outweigh the potential risks or costs to schools or students? Is this bill problematic enough in any form that it shouldn't pass, either because of the costs to students or the difficulty in implementing it at a school level? Regardless of your answer to the previous question, if this bill were to pass and if it were inevitable, what changes could or should be made to the bill to make it more palatable or workable for schools and students? Finally, if not this bill, what alternatives would you propose? And I would ask that as you're considering alternatives to this bill to address the concerns of the sponsors and people pushing for it, that you please also consider options beyond additional flexibility in the personal curriculum. That's a popular answer to the question of if not this, then what? And it doesn't always find favor politically in Lansing when trying to propose alternatives to such bills. Thank you for your time today and for your consideration of House Bill 5463. If you have any questions beyond this, again, please see MASSP's detailed policy memo, and also feel free to reach out to us with any questions you might have. Thank you.